know, at the end of a scene, the director says, cut. Charlie would say, cut, slop. And so...
That's if he didn't like it. But if
Yeah.
he liked it, he would say, ship it. Ship
Yes,
it.
no, but sometimes he said slop, and he liked it anyhow. But Charlie was all right. But we had one, I'll never forget, one time this director was telling me to do something, and I sat there thinking about it because it didn't seem right to me. And he said, what is it? I said, I don't mind doing what you asked, but I'm afraid you're going to screw this thing up. And all the guys on the crew started laughing, and I hadn't meant it like that. I hadn't meant it to embarrass him. It was just, I mean, it just came out the way I was thinking it. And so he screwed it up, but it was all right.
You know, I think about directors now also in television. I've done a little bit here and there, you know. I mean, like, you know, Scooby-Doo meets Davy Joe. SpongeBob and all that. What next, Shakespeare? Well, I find it difficult. You know, I like in the theatre, you know, the director would come in every 6 weeks and he'd sit in the audience unknown to the actors. Then he'd come backstage and you have a meeting the next day and say, don't do this, don't do that. Do it the way I directed it. My name's on that board out there. Not quite like that, but you know, in a sense. And now I find it difficult because I rely, no, I don't think of myself as a great actor or anything. I like to do it once in a while, but you know, you need sometimes help. As the actor said to the director, I think I'm going to screw this up if I do it that way. You know, that's a, you know, a professor that knows a lot of technique and otherwise, which I didn't know. But I always went to the, you know, I like to listen to people's opinions. Sometimes they give you an idea of how to say something. But nowadays, when I see TV, and I've been to TV studios and done a couple of bits and pieces, it's all camera 2, camera 1, 2, and they don't really care much about the actor acting. They expect the actor to act. And there's nothing better than collaborating or have a company where I'm sure as an actor that's had a lot of experience, I'm not saying you did, but if I was working with you and we were doing something, I would I would hope that you'd come to me and say, hey David, here, listen, I think maybe if you did so-and-so, so-and-so, or maybe you said it to Karen in those days, or some other people did not. I'm not, you know, sort of backslapping you. I'm just saying that, you know, a lot of actors need to be, you know, directed, advised. That's why it's called a director. But these days, they're collecting their, and now we're into video. It's a different thing, and I can't help but look.
You don't even feel that they're communicating with you at all.
You know, now, unfortunately, you get to the point where you've been in it a long time and you see stuff. I mean, now you've got video. You know, we film on our set, and the lightman was very concerned that there'd be a shadow on an actor's face.
Yes, right.
And so they say, hold it, wait a minute, stop it, let me just, because that was his reputation. That was his job, to be able to put the lighting in the right place. But now, you know, we've got the camera going here and everything, you know, and it's going, and the lighting, and somebody's in the shadow, and they make it they call it natural, or whatever it might be. So maybe I'm old-fashioned in my ways in that particular respect, but you know, I find that television these days is just, you know, the guy sitting in the booth clicking his fingers, and you know, whereas I always remember the director sitting on the side of the stage, you know, while you're acting, to give you some kind of something, and you feel, well, you know, and you know, when you have people watching, not just, and now, like, I'm not sure, do you have an audience on this show? No, because we never did either.
No.
But now they rely on it. Actors rely on that kind of stuff. You know, sort of, you'd be the audience, and we'd be up here doing a scene or something, you know, and you'd react where, I don't know whether in your days either, whether they just pressed the button and went,
Actually, we were the first show to get rid of a laugh track. Because the very first episode of Room 222, they did that. I always hated those laugh tracks. You would see a show, and a car would pull up to a post in the desert, and there would be applause. Where is that coming from? In the desert, you know, and they put that on us and we didn't like it and they took it away. But Davy's right. One of the things that I'm afraid that at least for an actor, the technology has not helped is that, you know, the director now sits sometimes not even in the same room where you're acting, in another room when you're making a film, and he's in there watching you on a monitor, and like a television monitor, you know, and it makes the actor feel like he's alone somewhere in the desert, you know.
Next to the post. That keeps applauding.
Right. And it bothers me a lot not to have the director right there next to the camera watching me, and instead of in another room watching some monitor, you know. I just feel like he feels, well, I'm seeing it just the way it's going to be, but I feel he's missing something.
He's missing the warmth and
Yes.
you know, stuff like that. You know, I think they're more technical than they are sort of like for the actor. They want to get on with it because these things cost fortunes these days. I mean, the Monkey Show costs $35,000 an episode, which is ridiculous. Now they're, you know, I mean, you know, Seinfeld's getting like, you know, $500,000 a rerun, you know, and that's another thing that I don't like. We got paid $400 a week for doing the Monkey Show, by the way. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. But and anything, I don't know, anything that's filmed before like '74, an actor does not get a royalty. You know, every time you hear a Daydream Believer on the radio, I don't get paid. The writer gets paid and the publisher gets paid, not the guy that sang it. But it doesn't matter. It's all promotional and it's all sort of identifying with that particular person. But I'm not saying sour grapes here at this point because you know, I always say that the Monkeys ruined my acting career. But it's up to the actor. And for us, as people that have been in the business for, you know, 40-odd years or more, probably, and
how to make friends.
You know, 40 it's up, you know, I believe that there is, you know, you say typecasting, you know what I mean? Okay, we're all from different TV shows that you all remember years and years ago. But it's up to the actor to actually break that down and go out there and say, okay, I can do this. You know, people ask me what I've done, you know, and what was most, you know, most satisfying time as an actor was like in the late 80s and early 90s. And instead of playing for the Artful Dodger in Oliver, I was talking like this, playing Faggy, my dear, come over here, you know. And I played an 80-year-old man, and when they reviewed and said, hey, it doesn't look like it's Davy Jones on that. You know, I wasn't falling in love and you know, sort of 3 times an episode and sort of like, you know, getting stars in my eyes. So that was, to me, it was like, oh God, finally, finally. It's sort of like, I also played a part, I played Jesus in Godspell back in England, in the West End, back in the mid-80s. And I had this fear, you know, I was on the cross. And, you know, it's the same thing as we keep, you know, excuse me, but weren't you in, you know, whatever. And I always had this fear at the end of the show when I was singing, oh God, I'm dying, oh God, I'm dying. Give us Daydream Believer before you go. You know what I mean?